Alright, let's not waste any time here. This is the ultimate ghost guide for Phasmophobia. Whether you're a reoccurring player or a player that's trying to transition into zero evidence gameplay, this video is for you. In this video I'll be going over every single ghost ability, a way to test for them, and video footage of each ghost ability so you can see them for yourself and cross-reference them with your game if you'd like. Before we begin, this video is specifically for zero evidence, so I will not be going over unique evidence-based abilities, such as Goryo's dots only appearing on a camera, or a Deogen breathing into a spirit box. Oh, and also before we begin, we will also need to know a few terms I will be commonly using throughout the video, so let's run them through really quickly. Line of sight buildup, aka line of sight speed. Line of sight speed means that a ghost will speed up when it has direct line of sight with the player. It will slowly accelerate from its lowest speed to its highest possible speed with the line of sight buildup. Smudge, a different word for incense. Loop. Looping is a technique where a player will lead a ghost in a circle for a portion or the entire duration of a hunt. This makes seeing some abilities much easier and much more reliable. Default ghost. Default ghost is a term used for ghosts that have no distinguishable speed, line of sight behavior, blinking pattern, or ability during a hunt, thus making them annoying to identify. Hunt identification. This is a term I will be using for ghosts that can be identified during a hunt. Interaction identification. This is a term I will be using for ghosts that can be identified outside of a hunt. I'm including events here as well. Now that we've gone over what you need to know, let's jump right into the ghosts. I have left timestamps for you if you want to only view specific ghosts. Starting off strong with a fairly annoying ghost, the spirit is a default ghost that has no unique abilities or behavior whatsoever. Because of this, spirits are usually ruled out later in a run because they are quite inconsistent. The only way to test for a spirit during a no evidence is by using a smudge test. Almost every single ghost in the game cannot hunt for 1 minute and 30 seconds after they have been smudged. However, for the spirit, this timer is doubled, meaning the spirit cannot hunt for a whopping 3 minutes after being smudged. For this, players often implement a third-party timer, such as live split, or a phone timer. The timer should be started the exact second the ghost is smudged, not after a ghost stopped hunting. However, this can be quite inconsistent at times, which makes the spirit a problem, because yes, an extra 1 minute and 30 seconds is a lot of time for any other ghost to hunt, so you can rule out a spirit. Any ghost can, however, just decide not to hunt for 3 minutes too. Because of this, it is recommended to do 2 to 3 smudge tests before confirming a spirit, because the chances of it trolling you multiple times in a row is astronomically low. Some people say that spirits tend to do a lot more events and interactions after being smudged. Personally, I haven't been able to collect any concrete proof of this, so it remains hearsay. The 3-minute smudge remains the only and most reliable method. Wraiths are quite scary but easily identifiable ghosts. They are a default ghost during a hunt and have no unique abilities during a hunt, but outside of hunts is another story. There are 2 ways to test for a Wraith: get it to step over salt or identify it through its teleportation ability. The Wraith is the only ghost in the game that cannot interact with salt, meaning when it steps over it, it will stay undisturbed. So what many players do is they place salt around a piece of furniture they are looping and get the ghost to walk through it while looping. This way a Wraith can be identified or ruled out very early in a run. Wraiths also have a special ability to teleport to the player from anywhere in the map at any time. When they do this, they will leave an EMF 2 reading at the player's position, or an EMF 5 reading is possible if you are playing with 1 evidence. So a reliable way to test for this is to set up motion sensors and an EMF somewhere far away from the ghost and its room. If the Wraith teleports on top of you, it will stick around for a few seconds and start walking back to its room, which means it will only trip the motion sensors on its way out. It will not trip it on its way in, because it did not physically walk through them to the player. It teleported straight around them. You can also put salt on the motion sensors for a 100% confirmation of a Wraith. While doing this test, it is strongly recommended to have a crucifix at your feet, because Wraiths are notorious for teleporting to players, hunting, and instantly killing them. Phantoms are fun ghosts because of the sheer amount of ways to identify them. They have both a hunt ability as well as an out of hunt ability and weakness. During a hunt, phantoms will blink a lot less, appearing invisible for most of the hunt. This can make them extremely hard to track while looping, case in point in this clip here. This ability is easy to spot because as soon as you find yourself struggling to loop it, the next most logical thought is that it is a phantom blinking very scarcely. Outside of a hunt, there are two ways to test for a phantom, with its stalking ability or with its weakness to being photoed or recorded. During an event where the phantom shows itself, the player can take a picture or video of the ghost. The phantom is the only ghost in the game that will visually disappear when it is photoed or recorded, and they will also not be present in the photo or video, which looks like this. As you can see, the photo still counts as a ghost photo, but there is no ghost in the photo. The stalking ability is similar to the Wraiths, but the difference being that it will not teleport, but rather physically walk to the player, from anywhere in the map at any time. This will also leave an EMF2 reading at the player's position once the phantom reaches them. The best way to test for this is to find a dead end or a hallway and put motion sensors in front of yourself. This way the phantom will trip them on its way into the room, it will stick around for a few seconds, and then it will start roaming back to its room, tripping the motion sensors on its way out. Just like the Wraith, I recommend having a crucifix on you while performing this test. The phantom will also drain 0.5 sanity a second whenever it is in heartbeat range of the player during hunts or events. Poltergeists are one of the community's favorite ghosts because of its exciting abilities. So what most players do is they will create what is called a poltergeist pile, or polty pile for short, where you pile up a bunch of random items such as plates, cups, books, etc. So you basically give the poltergeist toys to play with while you're looping it. There is also a very rare chance that a poltergeist will use a special ability called a poltergeist explosion, or poltiplosion for short, which basically acts like a grenade and throws all objects everywhere at once. Sadly, I was never able to capture this on video, so I will just steal the footage from someone else like any good YouTuber. It can do this during and outside of hunts. It also has an ability that I like to call a shotgun, where it will pick up a bunch of items out of the pile and hurl them at the player at a really high speed, which looks like this. It also has an ability to levitate multiple objects at once and set them back down. When the poltergeist uses one of these abilities, it will drain 2% sanity per object thrown to any nearby players. Outside of hunts and abilities, the poltergeist generally tends to throw more objects than other ghosts. Banshees are basically the Poltergeist and Wraith's close cousin, because they also have an ability to stalk/roam the player. They act completely normally during hunts and are a default ghost. The only ways to test for Banshees are to wait for its stalking ability or wait for a Banshee scream on a parabolic microphone. The Banshee stalks its prey pretty much identically to the Phantom, except for two things. The Banshee can only roam to the player if they are on the same floor as it, and it will not leave an EMF reading when it does roam to a player. Keep in mind that the Banshee will roam on a different floor to the player if the floor it is on only has one room. For example, the basement in Tanglewood is a single room, so the Banshee can still roam out of it. They are tested the same way as Phantoms, motion sensors at a dead end with a crucifix. Typically you will already know if it is a Phantom through a hunt, so if it is not a Phantom and it roams to you, it's a Banshee. Ghosts will normally make paranormal sounds through the game that can be heard through a parabolic microphone. The Banshee has a 33% chance to do a scream instead of one of these sounds. There are around 20 or so different Banshee screams, but they are all relatively easy to tell. Here are a few of them. I think it's a Banshee. Oh, and the screams can also be heard through an audio recorder, not just a parabolic microphone. The Banshee also tends to do more singing events than other ghosts, and touching the Banshee while it is doing a singing event will drain 15% sanity instead of the usual 10%. In multiplayer, the Banshee will also pick a target to roam to and to hunt. So if you're at the target, the Banshee will ignore all other players inside the house during a hunt while it is coming for you. I did not get any footage of this because I mostly play solo, and most people that play No Evidence play solo too. Sorry. As of the latest update, Banshees can now only be a female ghost. So if it's not a Phantom or Wraith and you have a male ghost, there's no need to test for a Banshee. Jinns have a few abilities, both present during and outside of hunts. A Jinn will act normally during a hunt except for one thing. When it spots the player and they are more than 3 meters apart, the Jinn will basically run to the player. Once it gets within 3 meters, it will slow back down to its normal speed and start building up line of sight like normal. This can be tricky to spot if the Jinn spots you from really far away, because the entire time it's running to you, it will also be building up line of sight. So once it gets to you, it can seem like it didn't change its speed and stayed fast, so the best thing is to find a medium-sized room or hallway and basically surprise the Jinn. Pop out, and once it sees you, it will quickly get to you and slow back down again. Also, 3 meters is an extremely short distance, so you have a lot of leeway for this. Very important to keep in mind is that the Jinn can only use this ability if the breaker is on, otherwise it will act completely normally. This makes it the worst ghost to get in the Apocalypse 3 challenge because the breaker is broken in that challenge, and it cannot use its ability, thus acting completely default. Outside of hunts, Jinn cannot turn off the breaker ever. So if a ghost turns it off, you can instantly rule out a Jinn. This doesn't count if the breaker starts off, however. The Jinn can then turn the breaker on if it wants to, but will never turn it off. There's a sort of secret ability where when the Jinn does attempt to turn the breaker off, it won't do anything, and thus it will leave an EMF2 reading at the breaker. And if the player is standing nearby, this ability will drain the player's sanity by 25%. I wasn't able to get footage of this, however, because it happens so rarely, so it is practically not even worth testing for, as the distance test is a lot more reliable. And don't think you can cheese Apocalypse 3 by leaving an EMF at the breaker. They can't touch the breaker if it is broken. Mares are one of the most annoying and difficult ghosts in the game for zero evidence. The Mare will act completely default during hunts and has no unique tells or abilities during one. The only way to identify a Mare is via light interactions, such as light switches. If the ghost at any point in the game turns on a light, it is not a Mare, as Mares cannot turn on lights no matter what. This includes light switches, lamps, TVs, and computer screens. Candles and heat sources like campfires and stove burners don't count, however, because those are not considered light, but rather candles. The Mare has a higher chance than any other ghost to do the light breaking event, where it will pop the lights and render them useless for the rest of the run. Keep in mind that the light switch is still functional and is still valid for a test. The most reliable way to identify a Mare is through its light switch ability. Once the light switch is flicked near a Mare, there is a chance that the Mare will almost instantly flick the light back off. Keep in mind that any ghost can just so happen to flick the light off quickly, so it is recommended to do this light test multiple times, at least 2 or 3 to confirm a Mare 100%. The Mare will hunt the player if they have 60% sanity and below and are in a dark room. If they are in a lit room, they will hunt at 40% sanity or lower. Overall, the Mare is a pretty luck-based ghost and can take a lot of testing to identify, solidifying its place as a hated ghost among many players. The Revenant is a very feared ghost and a favorite among many players. The Revenant can only be identified during a hunt, as it does not have any unique interactions outside of one. A Revenant will move incredibly slowly if it does not see or know where the player is, making it pretty easy to identify by just hiding somewhere and listening to its footsteps. However, if a Revenant spots a player or hears one of their electronics on them, it will instantly transition to an extremely fast speed and make its way to the player or their last known location. If it does not find the player after reaching the source of electronics, it will slow back down and attempt to find the player again. But if it does find the player, it will not slow down for any reason until it reaches and kills the player or the player escapes. Shades are commonly referred to as the most boring ghost in the game, as their whole ability stems from being shy and not doing anything. It has no unique behavior during a hunt and acts as a default ghost. The only way to identify a Shade is to perform a basic Shade test. The Shade will not hunt, interact, or literally do anything as long as the player is in the same room as it. This makes Shades really easy to identify in larger rooms, such as one-room basements, as they will basically never leave the room and will not squander the test. However, the problem arises when the Shade picks a small room, such as a bathroom, and commonly roams outside of it, at which point it can start doing things and give the players false positives. The player either has to resort to doing a candle test during a hunt, which can be unreliable, but still usable, or to simply track the Shade with motion sensors and follow it around rooms, or simply wait until it hopefully switches to a better room. Here's an example of both a positive Shade candle test and a false positive candle test. Basically, while the Shade is hunting, if it is in the same room and it blows out a candle, it is not a Shade. This can be a problem in certain rooms where there are many adjacent micro rooms that the Shade can clip and blow the candle out anyway. Because of this, I have done this test in the garage, a large room where it has no chance of leaving and squandering my candle test. The Shade also cannot do singing events, so if you get one, you can be 99% sure that it is not a Shade, and if you get 2 or more singing events in a run, it is 100% not going to be a Shade. Shades tend to favor the Shadow Ghost model during events and over others. I also have perceived Shades to do more mist form events than other ghosts, however this can just be random chance on my part. Overall, a very annoying ghost if the room borders are finicky. Shades are extremely difficult to test on a map like Camp Woodwind, where the outside area has invisible room borders that no human on Earth even knows. Demons are fairly difficult ghosts to test, as their entire abilities and tells revolve around tight timings and crucifix ranges. A demon will act completely normally during a hunt and is a default ghost. They also do not have any unique events or interactions except the fact that the crucifixes have a 50% larger range against them. So if you see a ghost hunt at the very edge of your crucifix range, it is not a demon. Because of this, crucifixes can sometimes go off inside the van or outside the front door on certain maps because of their increased range. The only semi-reliable way to test for a demon is, like a spirit, with a smudge test, or with a hunt cooldown timer. The demon is the only ghost in the game that can hunt after only a minute of being smudged. So if it hunts anywhere between 1 minute and 30 seconds after being smudged, it is a demon. This could be unreliable because demons can ironically be very passive and just never decide to hunt within that time window. This is where the second timing test can be applied, being the hunt cooldown test. Every single ghost in the game cannot hunt for 25 seconds after ending a hunt, except the demon, which can hunt after 20 seconds of ending a hunt, meaning there is a very tiny window of 5 seconds you can pay attention to. So if it hunts between 20 and 25 seconds after ending a hunt, it is a demon. This is pretty rare though, as 5 seconds is a very short window of time for a ghost to decide to hunt, so there's a possibility you might never see it use this ability. Demons can hunt at a sanity of 75% or below, and they also have an ability where they can hunt at any sanity, even 100%. But if you're playing with 0 sanity on top of your no evidence, this information is pretty useless. Yureis are quite an interesting and sometimes buggy ghost. Yureis have no unique hunting ability and are a default ghost. Their only tells are outside of hunts through interactions with doors or with a special smudge test. Yureis are the only ghost in the game that can only open or close doors fully. Keep in mind that every ghost can open and close doors fully, but in addition they can also leave them somewhere in between more commonly. When testing for a Yurei, you should think of it backwards. Instead of trying to test for a Yurei ability, you should actually try to test for ruling out a Yurei. Basically, if you ever see a door move without closing or opening fully, it cannot be a Yurei. A Yurei will typically do a signature double door touch, where you can hear the door hinge go up and down as the door swings open or closes shut. When it does this ability, it will drain nearby player's sanity by 15%. Yureis are also the only ghost in the game that can interact with the entrance door outside of a hunt or event. Keep in mind there is a lot of conflicting information about the specific ways doors open and close in the game. Like doors slamming shut really fast is not a Yurei ability. It is something any ghost can do. And there have also been times when I have left the door fully open, a Yurei has touched it, and the door simply doesn't budge at all. So to avoid this, a common method is to leave doors halfway open. This way the door is forced to move if a ghost touches it. A signature Yurei ability will be slow and semi-smooth opening or closing a door. If it is really fast or really slow, it probably isn't gonna be a Yurei ability. Yureis tend to interact with doors more often too, and all of these door rules apply to closet doors and locker shutters too. Unique doors such as tent flaps or prison shutters are not eligible for Yurei testing, as those doors function super weird and are extremely unreliable. All of the rules I just mentioned do not apply during hunts, however, so if you see a door half open during a hunt, it doesn't mean it isn't a Yurei and it proves nothing. There's a smudge test that can only be done on Yureis. After being smudged, a Yurei will not be able to leave its favorite room for a whole minute. This test can be a little difficult to pull off reliably and should only be used for a confirmation on a Yurei suspicion, or as a last resort. You should not use it as a guaranteed confirmation of a Yurei, because any ghost can just decide not to leave its room. Onis are simple and easy ghosts to identify. They have an extremely unique hunting ability as well as an event outside of hunts they cannot do. During a hunt, an Oni will be a lot more visible and will blink very frequently, making it very easy to track while looping. This is their only ability during a hunt, but it is a pretty obvious one. Otherwise, they are a default ghost. Outside of hunts, Onis will tend to do more events where they physically appear, and they would tend to favor the full ghost model during events rather than translucent or shadow variants. When they do an event on a player, they will drain 20% sanity compared to the normal 10% for other ghosts. A key feature of the Oni is that they cannot perform mist form events. So if you never see a mist form during your run, it is likely an Oni. Overall, an easy to identify ghost and is considered a free win by many players. Yokai is referred to as the deaf ghost. It is almost only identifiable during a hunt, in which a yokai test must be performed. Basically, when a hunt begins, a player should hide somewhere nearby. Not too far but not too close to the yokai. Once they are hidden, they can hold the B key to turn on their walkie-talkie, which counts as an electronic device. When you hear static coming through your walkie, that means the ghost is in range. The yokai is the only ghost in the game that cannot hear electronic devices unless it is within 2.5 meters of the player, whereas every other ghost in the game can hear the electronics up to 8 meters away. It is recommended to do multiple yokai tests to confirm it is or isn't a yokai, because it's not uncommon to get false positives due to poor judgment of distance, or the yokai just so happens to roam towards the player anyway randomly. If the ghost cannot hear your devices from a comfortably close distance, you can confirm a yokai. Outside of hunts, the yokai's only ability is to hunt at 80% sanity if the player or players are talking near it in voice chat. Otherwise, it acts completely normally and hunts at 50% sanity. Hantu's entire ability stems from temperature. The only way to identify them reliably is during a hunt, in which they have a constant speed and do not speed up with line of sight. The Hantu will move faster in colder rooms and slower in warmer rooms. Because of this, it is not uncommon to hear the Hantu constantly fluctuating speeds during a hunt, as it moves through different temperature rooms. When looping any ghost, the room you are looping in will gradually get colder because the ghost is present. The Hantu is the only ghost that can actually benefit from this, so if you loop it for long enough, it will cool the room down and make itself faster. If the breaker is off, the Hantu will be fast in most rooms, as the entire location will cool down, and they will also have a unique tell during a hunt, where they have a visible breath, just like the player does in cold rooms. This ability can only be seen if the breaker is off. A lot of people forget about this. If it is on, it will just hunt without the breath. Hantus have a higher chance of turning the breaker off, but this is highly unreliable to go off because any ghost can just so happen to like the breaker a lot. Overall, if you don't see the ghost speeding up while looping and it's not as fast as a Revenant, it's most likely a Hantu. The Goryo is the worst ghost to get in the game for no evidence run, as they quite literally have nothing unique to them. Goryos act normally during hunts and are default ghost. Outside of hunts, they have no unique interactions and they do not have a preferred event or anything of the sorts. They are the most vanilla ghost you can get. The only way to tell a Goryo during no evidence is if the ghost never changes its favorite room. That's it. The only reliable way to test for a Goryo is to literally rule out every single other ghost in the game. So if you never get that many Mare light switch abilities, no Yurei door touches, etc., you can just leave on Goryo and hope for the best. Otherwise, if you're playing on one evidence, they have force dots projector evidence and can only be seen on a camera. Mylings are somewhat difficult ghosts to identify if you are new to no evidence gameplay, but otherwise, once you get enough of them, you will get used to what they sound like. Mylings have only one unique hunting ability, being that it has a quieter footsteps than any other ghost in the game. This can be pretty difficult to hear if you don't have headphones, but fear not. There is also a test you can do called the flashlight test. The flashlight test is basically where you hide at a faraway location, place a lit flashlight at your feet, and wait for a hunt. Once it hunts, you need to listen out for footsteps. If you can clearly hear footsteps without the flashlight flickering, it is not a Myling. However, if you can pretty much not hear the footsteps until the flashlight starts flickering, it is a Myling. You will also hear items getting thrown around without any footsteps if it is a Myling. However, that it can be unreliable, so only use that information alongside a flashlight test. Outside of hunts, Mylings have a unique ability where they can make paranormal sounds more frequently compared to other ghosts. Every ghost in the game can only make one sound every 80 seconds. However, a Myling might make 2 sounds within 80 seconds. You can use this test if you're patient, but most players opt for looping or a flashlight test to identify Mylings. Onryos can be annoying depending on how big the room they're in is. Onryos have no unique hunting behavior and act as a default ghost. The only way to tell Onryos is through doing a bunch of candle tests. Onryos are the only ghost in the game where candles can function as a crucifix, as the Onryo fears fire. The conventional Onryo test involves a candle and a crucifix placed right on top of each other near the ghost. The Onryo will always prioritize candles over the crucifix, and will only burn the crucifix if there are no lit candles nearby. The Onryo has a few unique abilities concerning candles. The first being that the Onryo will always be forced to hunt under 6 seconds after blowing out a candle or candles for the 3rd time. They are also the only ghost in the game that can blow out the same candle under 20 seconds after it is relit. Onryo tests are the most reliable with a single candle and a single crucifix, but this only works in small rooms. In big rooms, you will be forced to spread them out and count your candle blowouts consistently, which can be quite annoying to do. Onryos also cannot light candles, fires, or hot burners, so don't worry about an Onryo lighting a candle and messing up your count of 3. This also means if you see a lit candle, fire, or burner in the map, you can safely rule out an Onryo. Overall, Onryos are a pretty simple ghost to test for as long as you get a small room to do it in. The twins can be an intimidating ghost for newer players, but once you get used to the default speed of many default ghosts, the speed change becomes quite obvious. The twins have a unique hunting behavior that is entirely based on speed. Every time the twins hunt, there is a 50-50 chance to get either the slow twin or the fast twin. You can tell these speeds either by hiding or by looping, but hiding tends to be easier. Other than the speeds, they have no unique hunting behavior. Outside of hunts, the twins have a semi-rare ability where they can interact with two things at once. In this clip you can see one of the twins throw an object in front of me, along with hearing a light switch get flipped in the garage. If you can't tell the speed difference from a default ghost, then your safest bet is to just wait out a few hunts until the other twin hunts, because a 0.4 change of speed is more noticeable than 0.2. Raijus are electronic-based ghosts. They have a default hunting behavior if there are no electrical devices present. Otherwise, if electronics are present, the Raiju will speed up quite noticeably around active electronics. Note that only player equipment counts as electronics. Lights and appliances inside the house do not count. There are a few ways to test for a Raiju. Either place some electronics around the location and hide near it and listen if the ghost changes its speed when it gets near them. Or you can try looping the Raiju and turning on a flashlight or holding anything electrical while looping. If you do it early enough in the hunt, you will notice it instantly speed up. Otherwise, if you try it late into a loop, it won't really change anything because the Raiju has already built up max line of sight speed and does not gain any benefit from the electronic anymore. Another key feature of a Raiju's is that the player's heartbeat is noticeably bass boosted. Here's a comparison of a Raiju heartbeat compared to a normal heartbeats. Heartbeats can also be heard during ghost events, making identifying a Raiju possible without a hunt. This is considered a bug in the community currently, so there's a high likelihood that the heartbeat will be patched, but as for now, it is valid. Raijus also affect electronics at much larger distances than other ghosts, 15 meters compared to the normal 10 meters. Raijus can also hunt at 65% sanity if they are near active electronics. Obake, or Obake, however you want to pronounce it, are shape-shifting ghosts. Their only identifiable ability can be seen during a hunt. During a hunt, an Obake will always be forced to shapeshift for at least one blink one time during a hunt. Otherwise, it can do this multiple times a hunt. This makes Obakes realistically only identifiable while looping. Otherwise, you would have to look at it while running away and smudging it, hoping it shapeshifts eventually. Or watching them from a safe location where the ghost can't see you, but you can see the ghost. Outside of hunts, the Obake has no unique abilities or interactions, unless you are playing on one evidence, in which it has forced UV light as evidence and it can sometimes leave a 6-fingered handprint or a 2-fingered fingerprint. The Mimic is quite a devious ghost. It can mimic any ghost ability, interactivity, and weakness at any time at random. It will change ghost type once every 30 to 120 seconds, which could potentially lead to inconsistent behavior, like a blatant change in speed or blinking pattern during a hunt. It's important to note that upon opening the front door, the ghost activates, and once the Mimic activates for the first time, it will not mimic any ghost, but it will rather be the most basic default form of a ghost possible with no unique behavior, interactions, or tells. The only real way to test for a Mimic outside of a hunt is oddly looking for ghost orbs. I know I said this video was mainly for no evidence, but when it comes to the Mimic, ghost orbs don't actually count as a piece of evidence, rather as a unique feature of the ghost, which is why in 3 evidence games, Mimics can have up to 4 apparent evidence, which is impossible. Overall, you can either look for ghost orbs or wait for a few hunts until it decides to mimic a blatantly different ghost. Morois can be quite a speedy and interesting ghost. Morois have one main ability and one main weakness during hunts. Their ability is that they are faster the lower the player's sanity is, so paired with max line of sight buildup and 0 sanity, the Moroi earns the title of the fastest ghost in the game at a whopping 3.71 meters a second. Looping a Moroi might be scary at first, but once it reaches its max speed, it becomes ironically easier to loop because even it can't quite control its own speed reliably. The Moroi's weakness is incense. When smudged in a hunt, the Moroi will be blinded for 7 seconds instead of the usual 5. So if you are scared to test the Moroi by looping, you can simply smudge it and count for how long it stays smudged. You can also take sanity pills mid-hunt and watch the Moroi actively get slower, or you can get hunted once, take pills, get hunted again, and listen out for a speed decrease. Outside of hunts, the Moroi has a unique ability to curse the player through a parabolic microphone, sound recorder, and or spirit box if you have evidence. Once cursed, the player's passive sanity drain is doubled, even while in a lit room, and the curse persists until sanity meds are taken, which breaks the curse. Deogen is an iconic ghost for being the freest wind possible. The Deogen can only be identified during a hunt and has probably the most unique hunting behavior out of any ghost in the game. Deogen will always know where the player is, making hiding impossible. And when far away from the player, it will move at an incredibly fast speed. But when it gets within 2 to 3 meters of the player, it will slow down to an almost complete halt and will move at around 0.4 meters a second. This makes it one of the safest ghosts in the game as long as you aren't cornered or hiding, as you can outwalk a Deogen even on Apocalypse 3, where the ghost speed is 150% and the player's speed is 50%. The Deogen hunts at 40% sanity or below. The Deogen will also blink more often, just like Onis do, making pictures even easier to get. There is also a conspiracy theory that you cannot get Deogens on a fresh account before level 30. I have actually found this to be true because I have personally only seen my first Deogen at around level 48. Not much else to say about the Deo. You will instantly know if it's a Deogen if you are waiting on a looping spot, and you can farm money off of it by recording it all you want. There is virtually zero danger as long as you don't fall asleep or your keyboard breaks or something. Thays are quite scary ghosts as they are super fast at the beginning of a game and are early hunters too, being one of the 2 ghosts in the game that can hunt at 75% sanity or below. The Thaye has a very unique hunting mechanic. It does not speed up with line of sight, making it easily identifiable while looping. The Thaye has an aging mechanic tied to it, and at the beginning of a run is when it is at its youngest. It will move at a fast 2.75 meters a second. However, the Thaye will age over time during the run as long as the player is spending time near it. Time near it counts if it is either in the same room as the player or the player is within 3 meters of it. It will attempt to age once every 1 to 2 minutes, and if the player is near it, it will age. If not, it will re-attempt to do so every 30 seconds. Every time it ages, it gets slower, less active, and less aggressive. When it is at its oldest, it moves at a pathetic 1 meter a second, and hunts at a sanity of 15% or below, making it the conventionally weakest ghost. Outside of a hunt, the Thaye has no tell unless you have an Ouija board present, with which you can ask its age, and if you notice the age has changed on the Ouija board the next time you ask its age, it is a Thaye. Now for the new ghosts added as of December 2025. For the brand new ghosts, take my information with a grain of salt, as they are still highly untested as of making this video. Dayans are a brand new ghost added to the game as of December 2025, and they have a very unique ability. The Dayan, first things first, can only be a female ghost or ghost model, so if you have a male ghost, you can instantly root out a Dayan, just like a Banshee. As far as I have perceived and tested, they have no unique interactions outside of hunts. Many people speculate that the Dayan can only hunt at around 40% sanity if you are standing still, and around 65% sanity if you are moving around. But I have personally not been able to test this out. During a hunt, the Dayan acts very distinctly to other ghosts. When it is far away from the player, around 10 or 12 meters or so, it will act normal and will have a default speed. However, when it gets within a certain range of the player, its ability will activate. The Dayun's ability is completely movement dependent. If the player is standing still, the Dayan will move at a slow speed, around the speed of a Revenant without line of sight. However, as soon as the player moves, the Dayan will instantly start moving quicker at around 2.25 meters a second or so. Sprinting doesn't make the Dayan go faster, it seems, so don't be afraid of sprinting to get away from it while looping. The Dayan can feel a little weird to loop at first, as if you ever stop moving, it will oddly slow down and it might throw you off. But as long as you keep moving, it's no different to looping a Hantu, for example, as it also does not speed up with line of sight. This is definitely the easiest out of the 3 new ghosts to identify. On multiplayer, every player has to engage in this ability. That means as long as one player is moving, the Dayan will start moving faster. The Gallu is another new ghost added as of December 2025. It has multiple methods of identification. Outside of a hunt, the most reliable thing I have discovered is that the Gallu has a chance to not trip salt, just like a Wraith. So an easy early way to rule out a Gallu is to put salt around when you plan to loop it, and you can either loop it early or late into a hunt. There is a chance that only some of the salt will be tripped, whereas other pieces won't be. Another tell for a Gallu during a hunt is its highly fluctuating speed. Gallu appears to go through phases of enragement. The more enraged it is, the faster it will be. It was theorized that this enragement can be influenced by crucifixes, incense, and maybe salt and candles, but through further testing, I have found this to most likely not be the case, as the Gallu seems to just fluctuate between normal, weakened, and enraged states, making it change speeds at random. The Gallu has 3 speeds it can pick, so if you notice the ghost shifting speeds a lot from hunt to hunt, and it also has line of sight build up when you're looping it, it is most likely a Gallu. From testing, I have also found that the Gallu behaves strangely, almost like it was stalking me like a Banshee would. As you can see in this clip, this is supposed to be an overpowered hiding spot that the ghost cannot check. So unless they patch the spot, the Gallu seems to have some sort of sixth sense for people that are hiding sometimes. Obambo is the 3rd ghost added as of December 2025. It is hands down the hardest of the 3 to identify and no evidence. The Obambo will switch between a calm and aggressive state every 2 minutes. The calm state will not be able to hunt you above 10% sanity, whereas the aggressive state will not hunt you above 65% sanity. This can be a little difficult to test for, as there are a lot of ghosts with varied hunting sanities, but a very good player can probably time things correctly. From my personal experience, I have found the Obambo to be very reluctant to hunt, oftentimes waiting a whole 2 minutes before hunting again. This can be a decent fact to confirm a suspicion of an Obambo. As for the hunt, the Obambo will have a speed of 1.45 while in a calm state, and a 1.96 while aggressive. This is almost impossible to differentiate from the twins, as there is only a 0.05 speed difference between the two. So unless you are a very seasoned player at the game and know every ghost speed off of 2 footsteps alone, you will have to resort to some luck and trial and error. Unlike the twins, the Obambo can switch its state or speed during a hunt, whereas the twins will always stay the same speed for the whole hunt. This is basically the only guarantee that it is an Obambo. Otherwise, it has line of sight buildup, making it no different from the twins. You can probably start a timer the second you open the door, and every 2 minutes it will change speed. So if you can time it well enough to where 2 minutes pass during a hunt, you will get the speed change, and you will instantly be able to realize that it is an Obambo. If the community discovers any more crucial information about these 3 ghosts, I will post discoveries in the description or pinned comments. And that covers every ghost in Phasmophobia as of December 2025. Thank you for watching if you got to the end. This was a difficult project to film, so I hope you get something useful out of the video, and if not, I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. If you want me to make other tutorials, such as my usual setup strategy for no evidence or looping guide, you can ask in the comments, and also like other people's comments requesting the same. Anyway, that's about it. Goodbye.